All right, question number 9. Give each answer in terms of P, Q, and R. Move my sheet just a little bit so we can see that. So for number 9, we're asking all about angle P. So I'm asking about the sine of P, the cosine of P, and the tangent of P. So we're going to use this angle, angle P, as our reference angle. So if I want to know what the sine, the cosine, and tangent are, the first things we need to do is come up with our opposite, our adjacent, and our hypotenuse. So remember, our reference angle points to our opposite, the right angle points to our hypotenuse, and so that means the one left over is our adjacent. So sine is what over what? Good, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So if it's opposite over hypotenuse, it's going to be, well, now that there's not a bug crawling on my paper, we can answer this one. So sine, once again, is opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite is P, the hypotenuse is R. So my sine of P is going to be P over R. Cosine is what over what? Good. So it's adjacent over hypotenuse. So it's going to be Q over R. And then last thing, tangent is what over what? Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So it's going to be the P over the Q. All right, number 10. Okay, number 10, see if you can do it yourself. So you can see we have the same triangle here, only now I'm not asking you about angle P. I want to know what the sine of Q is, the cosine of Q, and the tangent of Q. So instead of that angle P being my reference angle, this is now my reference angle, angle Q. So we're going to have a little bit different opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So make sure that you line them up correctly and then see if you can answer number 10. All right, so first of all, for angle Q, that's going to point to my opposite, that's going to point to my hypotenuse, and then this is my adjacent. So you can see it's a little bit different. The opposite and the adjacent are switched this time. So sine of Q is going to be my opposite over my hypotenuse, so Q over R. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so that's going to be P over R. And tangent is opposite over adjacent, so Q over P. All right, hopefully you did well on that. Let's move on to number 11. Once again, I'll help you out with this one. So for number 11, the first thing we're going to look at is our angle A. So this is our reference angle. So can you tell me what side is my opposite, what side is my hypotenuse, and what side is my adjacent? Okay, so my opposite is going to be the 5, my hypotenuse is going to be the 13, and my adjacent is then going to be the 12. So sine is what over what? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Let me move this a little bit over there. So it's going to be opposite over hypotenuse, or 5 over 13. So now we finally have a value using numbers, a little bit easier this way. Cosine is what over what? Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so it'll be 12 over 13. And then tangent is what over what? Opposite over adjacent, so 5 over 12. All right, and lastly, do number 12 on your own. Once again, same triangle, but now my reference angle is this angle B instead. So go ahead and tell me, what is the sine of B, what is the cosine of B, and what is the tangent of B? All right, so if B is my angle we're looking at, then that must be my opposite. The hypotenuse is always going to stay the same, so that'll be my hypotenuse, and adjacent. So once again, the opposite and the adjacent switch places. So sine of B is the opposite over the hypotenuse, 12 over 13. Cosine of B is adjacent over hypotenuse, 5 over 13. And tangent is the opposite over the adjacent, so 12 over 5. Perfect. And please leave your answers just like this as a fraction. Hopefully that went okay with you. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask Ms. Heath. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow and I'll help you guys out with it. We're going to continue with trigonometry tomorrow.